Today I want to talk about some interesting stuff that happen in my daily life. I usually pay attention to these things, even though they seem to be really off-topic kind of ideas. I was at problem with my older car, Nissan, and the engine is kind of catapulted or has is giving a signal it's gonna die. Then I started taking the bus, and uh, there's a couple of stuff that happens is really interesting on the bus while we were going through the area of Orange. It's the Chapman University, and uh, uh, the bus driver, he was talking about like how the city, this part of the city is kind of old, and but they don't really want to tear it down because the people, they're very used to the place, and it does have a kind of like an old town feel to it. It's like a lot of little shops and restaurants, and people go and sit and chit chat. It's more laid back than the rest of the town. And then he went on to say that like Trump is developer, and if he wanted, he could tear up this whole place and build up mega structures or very fancy looking buildings, and then they wouldn't. But the people there, they wouldn't let him. They like this stuff old and kind of cozy, and kind of signals that they have a kind of loose community, but they don't want things to change. But this is exactly what the many companies and the rich have done to many parts of United States, that they they weren't kind of middle class or affluent white, and they have gone in there and completely destroyed the place, completely buy up all the property, and kick out all the people that may be black or Spanish, and turn the place into high-rise buildings and very expensive condos that none of the local people can afford to live in there, and they sometimes or often they people that had a life or that was their neighborhood, they do put up a fight, and then the courts that are very much geared or sympathetic to these white corporations, they just look away, and the place gets ruined and becomes something that people don't live in there. Well, there might be cousins of Trump live in there, or white Jews with a lot of money, or some gays that have cash to burn. They move in. They call this process gentrification, which means that they completely ruin a place, and they completely destroy its character, what it was. And because there is no boundaries, economic or cultural or societal boundaries around these places, and the people there, they're unable to put up a good fight, then they gradually, a lot of places lose their culture, become crap like this. Well, this happens, this is something that the United States does to other countries too, publish zillions of dollars, and then they go with their dollars and buy property in many diverse countries, and then they become the landlord and they dictate their BS, their regulation, their code to the local people. They kind of destroy the culture of the place. The money becomes very corrupted. We don't know where this money came from. It has no connection to the local economy. The money is just some kind of snake, a big snake that you know seeps in or kind of goes around all over the places. And in United States itself, the these landlords and developers, they have made all these buildings and all these they own a lot of the houses. They have insidious criminal culture. It has no relevance. You don't know who owns this building, but there is all these regulations. It's like an iceberg. You don't see the huge mass of the iceberg, but when it's in top of it, you can see is it's itself a hidden, insidious culture that comes in and forces the place to live according to this code, but you don't know where this came from. Well, it has any kind of relevance to people. In fact, I think in the future there's going to be huge backlash, like Gilets jaunes. Iran had a revolution, and I want to tell you some of the reasons the Iranian revolution happened was because the Shah and his family, they were very connected to foreign corporations, or they could bring in new products and new industries, and these new industries would be mostly owned by his cousins or friends, and it was eroding and destroying the traditional business or businessman and their culture, which is very close to Iranian culture or the bazaar culture. This brought on a reaction, a very negative reaction. That's how the Iranian Revolution was financed by the wealthy Iranians, bazaris, and then from the other sectors of the society. I think this is something that is gonna like come to haunt United States. What I think will happen is that many corporations, many wealthy, they've been getting the benefits of socialism. They get easy loans, monies that's just handed to them by the central bank, and they go out and do all these investments that make sense or they don't make sense, and they not only dismantle older established businesses or corporate companies that had a legitimate reason for being, they replace them with zombie, newly built companies and their hidden agendas and culture. It becomes a clash with also the population, the population that never asked for these developments, and they're losing their culture and their community, and something obnoxious that looks fantastic but actually doesn't have any relationship, anything to do with the people there. This comes in, and this process has been going on in the American society, and to some extent in other societies. And at some point, there will be a huge backlash, like Gilets jaunes or Iranian Revolution, and they just come in. You don't know who will come in. completely demolish these institutions. I was listening to Peter Schiff, his new episode. I was talking about that many of these unicorns, like WeWork, he especially was talking about WeWork and Uber and what was the other company? There's a few of them that they're completely losing out in the stock market. Then he went on to talk about the bonds that are mispriced and have actual nominal negative rates that they're just going to go belly up too. Uh, so this happens with the wealthy. They they live in their own little world, and they make these synthetic or baseless investments, and they create a culture and a life for themselves and whoever is unfortunate enough to get on the way. And then at some point reality comes in. One day the investors wake up and say, "Oh my God, I'm holding all these bonds. I'm losing on every dollar of them, or I'm losing daily 2% in the stock market in the value of this bond or this stock. What am I gonna do?" Either panic comes in, or it happens in a deflationary collapse, like you're falling off a very tall staircase. You fall, and you're stuck at one point. Then there's a little more momentum, and then you fall some more. In the process, you break your hand and legs, your head, and then at the bottom, many of these investors, they're just completely beaten up and dead. Or another way it happens is that kind of like a hidden collapses happen. That really the value of a building or the rent of it or the utility of the company to the local people has really collapsed to almost zero. But the stock valuation or what other investors perceive of the company hasn't. So the company loses all these customers. Hardly you see anybody knocking on their door asking for their widget or to rent the place, and they have all these products and rooms available at, at the prices that they think the society should pay. But actually, there isn't any customers. They have actually died. They're zombie corporations or zombie nation like Saudi. The population, they're doing their own thing, and the economy, the real economy is kind of seeping or going along in an underground fashion. For example, that company that had all these widgets, you see them, their products are showing up in the yard sales and in swap meets, and they're selling $1 on $10, on pennies on the dollar. This is the real economy and what the local people can afford versus what the picture shows, and something like that. And the same with when these corporations move into a neighborhood, like a black neighborhood, and they completely demolish the neighborhood. Everybody moves out, and then they build up the place. It becomes this whole bunch of stupid, modern-looking buildings, and the people that were stranded, they kind of move into other parts of the town that there are buildings very similar to this building, but the the real price is what the owners is forced to charge, because the real economy won't pay any other price. So then this new set of fancy looking buildings becomes the old neighborhood, becomes the ghetto, becomes the new ghetto. But everybody is dressed up like they are a corporate man. Have you seen this? I think you have. But anyhow, this happens in a phony zombie economy and phony and zombie politics of places like here. Well, in Islamic theology, in Islamic mythology, they say that Israel, the name is the name. It's not the same as Israel, which is a Jewish state. But Israel is one of the angels of God, and he is the angel of death. But a lot of Muslims, they say that Israel is really also a very valuable angel of God, because he comes in and puts an end to a very sad, obnoxious being or processes or economies. Like the angel of death, you know, finally comes in and gives his blessings to these things. This is a very interesting topic, because it's kind of it's new sociological discoveries, I think. Uh, Another thing that I really like is looking at things that just happen in the daily life that kind of point to really very widespread and important events in society. And I think that I really like. I went on the bus. I went extra 2-3 exits beyond my destination. I was coming back, and I was trying to get off on Chapman and Maine. But then I kind of dozing off on the bus, and I ended up in Chapman and Catella. So I got off, and I wasn't sure that I'm gonna catch another bus going back. I asked the bus driver. He said, "Yeah, there is gonna be another bus," but I wasn't sure because it was late, and then I was waiting at this bus stop. I didn't know is anybody coming. Maybe I have to walk 3 blocks again. Then there was this lady. She showed up, and she had gone into this movie theater, kind of like show old movies, and we were chit chatting. I was asking her, you think there's another bus coming? And she said, yeah. Our discussion kind of veered off, and she was like my ex. She worked in therapeutic, nut houses or halfway houses, and I was telling her, most of the humanity in almost all of its history has lived in tribes. There wasn't really a distinct, just the one guy or one girl, like all by herself. It wasn't like sitting in living in the city, but it was people were very connected. They were part of the extended families and extended communities. And with many apps like WhatsApp or different apps that let people see and talk to each other, these communities are coming back despite all this carnage that companies have done, have kind of atomized society. There's just one guy, and there's like thousands of miles away, there's his closest cousin living in Tehran. And it's not like that anymore. These isolated individuals, they're able with technology to reconnect and become the tribe again. Become even though there is physical distances, but the tribes are coming back because it's possible technologically without any kind of pay or gate fees. It's just like when you were living in an old tribe, you didn't have to pay or have to travel to see another tribe member, something like that. And this is a more of a healthy way of living, mentally and otherwise. Well, thank you very much for putting up with me and listening to all my weird ideas. Please subscribe.